Hi, everybody. I'm André Williams, president of the Miami Gardens Chamber of Commerce, and I am delighted to have Michel Hausmann with us today. He is the founder and artistic director of Miami Do Drama at the Colony Theater in Miami Beach, and I'm so proud to serve on his board of directors. They let me into the room, so that's very exciting, and they've been putting on some wonderful programming at Miami Do Drama. And I want Michel to tell us a little bit about him and the genesis of Miami New Drama. Michel.
Andre, thank you so much. It's always a blessing talking to you, and we're very happy to have you on our board of directors. And it has been a terrific experience getting to know you and collaborating for the last few years. Well, listen, Miami New Drama was founded in sometime around the year 2014, 2015. Our first production was at the Colony Theater in January of 2016. So we are 8 years into this journey. I had come from New York. I just finished a master's at Columbia in theater directing. And before that, I had been running a large theater company in Venezuela, where I'm originally from, until I got into some heated political conflict with the government, and that sort of prompted my exit from Venezuela. And my first vision for Miami New Drama was to create a theater that would help steer the way for the future of the American theater. And let me try to unpack that a little bit more. When I graduated and I wanted, I couldn't think of why starting. I wanted a theater company, but I couldn't think of why starting one in New York makes no sense. There's so many theater companies already. And Miami is the largest metropolis in America that did not have a major professional regional theater. And it's a very Hispanic city. It's a city of exiles. It's a city of immigrants. Miami is 70% Hispanic, 20% either African American or Afro-Caribbean, and 10% of white Anglos, and a big chunk of those are of Jewish descent. So it's a very interesting and unique community that looks more like what the future of America would look like than any other city in America. We are a majority city, and not many cities in America are like that. So whatever, if we could figure out a way to have a successful theater company in Miami that creates a new work for such diverse community, then I think that you have an argument of a pathway of how to create the American theater of the next few decades, when America as a whole will become more diverse, more multicultural, more multilingual. So in a way, that's the origin of Miami Drama. I rented the Colony Theater. Colony Theater is owned by the city of Miami Beach. And at that time, it was run by a for-profit company. And I rented it, and I produced a show called The Golem of Havana, which I directed, and I had written the book for it. It's a musical. And it was very successful. And I knew I had political capital. Political capital is the opposite of real capital, right? If you have real capital,
it doesn't pay the bills. Political capital doesn't pay the bills.
It doesn't, right? And it diminishes by the day. Whereas real capital only grows if you see. So I knew I had some political capital, and I need to use it right away because it devaluates by the day. So I approached the Chamber of Commerce of Miami Beach to get their support before I approached the government. And I said, here's my vision. I want to turn that building, which is almost abandoned, poorly run by a for-profit company, and let's turn it into a world-class culture organization. let's partner up with my nonprofit and the city. And so, the Chamber of Commerce gave the recommendation. I went to speak to all the commissioners and to the mayor. And, I proposed, a program that they said, well, let's try to work on a 2-year program. And, they bought it. We make it, we did a 2-year pilot program. They then turned into a 5-year, and now it's a 20-year management agreement for the Colony Theater, and we've transformed that space from really underused to one of the biggest cultural assets of the region.
That's an incredible story, and I'm so glad you're going to share that with the folks who are going to be listening to this programming. And you mentioned the diversity, the multiculturalism, and the diversity here in South Florida. And you're the largest Hispanic professional theater in the country, but you have a lot of diverse programming.
Yeah, but we're the largest bilingual theater in the country. I wouldn't want to, although we do a lot of Hispanic work, it's always hard to, I don't feel comfortable with either, with saying that we're a Hispanic theater or that we are a Black theater, or that we are, because we are a real representation of our community, and our community is all of the above. So
absolutely. That's a perfect segue into your most recent production of Dangerous Days, which I would love for you to share with the listeners. What inspired you to produce this play, its history, and how important it is to the cultural makeup of Miami-Dade County?
I read, Nick Griffin has been a friend for many years, and I read his book, The Year of Dangerous Days, which is all about the year 1980 and how sort of that was a pivotal. If you want to understand Miami, you have to understand the year of 1980, because a few things happened that would determine the future of Miami, and in a way, the future of America. One was the Mariel boat lift and the immigration crisis of all of a sudden having 125,000 new immigrants in a city or in a county of 400,000. So imagine, from one day to the other, 25% of your population just arrived on a boat, and your community is not built to hold them. We don't have the schools, the hospitals, the housing. And so it created a tremendous crisis in Miami. It was also the year where the war on drugs would begin. It's a year where the cocaine trade became the focal point of this community, and it went from a handful of murders a year to thousands of murders in the year 1980. It was also the year of the largest race riot in America, which was the McDuffie riots. And it was also the year where it was clear that Miami would not be a city that tried to become a city like Atlanta or Jacksonville, or trying to model itself for other American cities, but rather it was the year where Miami realized that we were that we had to look south to Latin America in a way as the capital of Latin America. And so when I read the book, I thought it was terrific. I said to Nick, who we had already been developing another work with him, I was very interested on the visit of Nelson Mandela. For those people who are not familiar, Nelson Mandela visited Miami in the year 1994. After he was jailed before he became the president of South Africa, and in just a few days before he was to arrive in Miami, he gave an interview to Ted Koppel, where he said that he's very thankful for the support of Fidel Castro, and that didn't
enraged the Cuban community here.
It did, yeah. And so the city renegade, what's the word? Took away the keys of the city that they were going to give to Nelson Mandela, and so the African community, the African American community, of course, got extremely upset, and that's actually that is what led to the 2 year boycott of the NAACP and the Black community to Miami, which you know trans translated into billions of dollars lost for the city. It was a pivotal moment. But as we were developing that story, I said to Nick Griffin, hey, why don't we take out the Edna Buchanan, Arthur McDuffie storyline out of your book and turn it into a play? And he was interested, but he was very skeptical because he hadn't written a play before. And I said, listen, you're a very smart man. And yeah, writing a play is different than writing something else, but it can be taught. It's a science. There are rules. There are ways that, from Aristoteles, sort of like gave the blueprint, and from then on, we've been developing the art of telling stories on stage, and so he read a lot of plays, and he spoke with a lot of college level professors, and he wrote a draft which was very solid, and from that draft on he kept working on it for a year and a half, and I think that the final product was excellent. I'm so proud of the work he's done as a playwright. um, and the show focuses on Edna Buchanan's investigation of the murder of Arthur McDuffie at the hands of 15 police officers. And what is more surprising about the story is that when it was being covered in Miami, and Edna uncovered a lot of what the police have been trying to hide from the public, it just became very clear to us as a community that this was a murder. This was a modern day lynching. And the surprise came when the trial, that did not take place in Miami, but in Tampa, gave a verdict of not guilty to the officers in question, and that felt like such a slap in the face of this community, where it was so clear what had happened, and the fact that justice did not prevail led to a very horrific uprising, the Miami Rebellion, the McDuffie riots, that then turn into really a race riots, and you would have white vigilantes coming and killing black folks, and black folks killing white folks, and it is some of the fault lines that we still have in our community. And unfortunately, this is something that we are seeing time and time again in Miami. Actually, today there's this video that came out um, of a black driver who I don't know if you saw it, but he um, hit a light bulb, an electric pole, and then he sort of went on running. He entered a social club that was nearby, and the police came to get him, and they're like, no, don't come here, you're gonna kill me, you're gonna kill me. And the police grabbed him, and it's all taped, of course. The police grabbed him, put him in the floor, but surprisingly, even after George Floyd, they put their knee on his neck, and the man said, I can't breathe, you're killing me, and they killed him. This came out today.
I didn't see that.
It is a replica, really, of the George Floyd. And you could say, well, he did, could have been a criminal, not a criminal, but we are a society that has a judicial system. And the idea that black folks, are killed disproportionately at the hands of police officers is not an issue of 1980 or 1960 or 2000 or 20. It's been an ongoing issue of America, and it seems like what has changed maybe is that there has been some accountability. But even in the Rodney King riot, the police officers walked free. George Floyd maybe marked a change in which the officers were prosecuted and convicted and jailed. But this is an epidemic that we have in the country.
Yeah, and I saw Dangerous Days and front row seats, but I can tell you, and I was very young when the McDuffie riots happened, so it didn't personally impact me probably like it did most, but I grew up in that era, and there's always been tension between the Black community, the Hispanic community, and even the Anglo community here in Miami-Dade County. And I think your production, I think you and Nick Griffin captured that in the play, and I was so proud to be a part of that. So kudos to you. You did a great job. Now let's pivot to another subject, and that's your arts and education programming. Because yes, you do put on these high level productions, but you also support kids and educating kids about the arts. Michelle, tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
that.
and I would like to tell you that what breaks my heart about arts education is how hard it is to deal with the school district.
Mm-hmm.
We we used to have thousands of students come every year to see our shows. They saw One Night in Miami before it was turned into a movie. We were doing at least 4 or 5 performances just for students. But in the last few years, the school district have censorship rules. So there's certain subjects that students, even high school seniors, cannot see. And that has reduced significantly the amount of play. I mean, it was so absurd that they opposed Nilo Cruz, Pulitzer Prize winning play, Anna in the Tropics. I had to talk with Dr. Dotres, who's the new superintendent in the last few years, who's a very decent man, and we were able to work it out, but we still have issues when we were doing another of Nilo's play, and we didn't even try to pitch Dangerous Days because the school would have said no for language, for for race reason. It is so sad how we are trying to prevent our kids from learning history and from this also become an incredibly conservative society of the idea that kids should not be exposed to issues of conflict or issues of homosexuality or race or those are key issues of our society, and students are smart enough to be confronted by them. And also it breaks my heart that there isn't the level of arts funding that used to exist. So companies like Miami New Drama, we are in residence in 6 schools providing free training and free classes for those students, because the government the state has retreated in their responsibility to educate our children, and so nonprofits are taking that step of trying to counterbalance. But even our biggest effort can never really, and I'm sure that we will transform the life of many, but I'm sure when you went to school, there was much more investment in the arts, and it's sad, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I was so happy that you agreed to appear on our platform, because I do think the business community needs to be more involved with arts funding. I think our government is failing us in that regard. So the Miami Gardens Chamber of Commerce, although a little bit far afield from Miami Beach, but we still want to actively support Miami New Drama.
We are one big community. We are one big.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this podcast is going to reach a larger audience. So we want to introduce you to those folks. So Michel, as we close out, why don't you tell us how people can reach you, how they can support you, and then some some of your ideas or plans for the future.
Yeah, Miami New Drama is the Colony Theater on Lincoln Road. We have a presence online on our website, miaminewdrama.org. We are on Instagram at Miami New Drama, Twitter or X. We are, in any message that we receive from there, we always reply, and we would love to have, open dialogue and especially nonprofit organizations of from Miami Gardens and other cities would be great to partner, to bring, to see shows, and just to continue the conversation.
Well, you're doing great work, Michel. And again, I'm proud to serve on your board of directors, proud about the programming you all put on. You are an important part of our cultural fabric, and diversity is a blessing and it can be a curse too. But I think you guys know how to move that forward in a very respectful, incredible way that we don't oftentimes see. So I continued great work. You're going to have my continued support, and hopefully we can introduce you all to a wider audience of folks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andre. Such a pleasure, as always, talking to you.
All right, Michel, thank you for joining us, folks, and we'll talk to you soon.